I just want to start my presentation thanking the university for this opportunity and especially thanking JR. This was such an exciting program. I really appreciate, taking part in it. And thank you, all of you, for being here to listen to our, presentation. And it was really fun to get to know other fellows as well. So the title of my presentation is Seeing Inequality from the Street, a machine learning pilot study of Ravenna, Ohio. So imagine you're walking down two streets in the same city. One is lined with mature trees, shaded sidewalks, and well-kept homes. The other has boarded buildings, little shade, cracked sidewalks, and vacant lots. Without looking at a single census map, you've already learned something about inequality. But how do we measure those everyday experiences? Most maps measure cities from above, census data, income, demographics, satellite imagery, but cities are also experienced from the street. What we see every day, trees, buildings, sidewalks, shades, and these shape how we experience our neighborhoods. Can AI learn to read those visual clues? That's the question behind this project. So I'm trying to build a visual inequality index. Instead of asking, where is inequality? I ask, what does inequality look like? The project aims to reveal hidden spatial disparities, map everyday environmental conditions, add a street-level perspective to traditional urban data, support more informed and equitable planning decisions. So we need to teach AI to read a street for that reason. Rather than only counting buildings or roads, the model looks for three things. Visible greenery, how much vegetation do people actually experience? Are streets green and inviting? The second category is shade exposures. Is there shade for walking? Which streets may be more vulnerable to heat? And the third category is visual signs of disinvestment. Building deterioration, vacant or neglected properties, overgrown lots, or boarded buildings. So together, these features become a new way of understanding how residents experience the city. So the question is, why Ravenna? Ravenna represents the kinds of small and mid-sized cities that are often overlooked in discussions of urban inequality. A mix of stable neighborhoods and areas facing long-term disinvestment, diverse street conditions within a relatively compact city, manageable scale for testing new AI models, and finding that can be adapted to many similar communities across North America. And I'm going to talk about the next step of the project, which actually contains looking into more neighborhoods and cities. So in terms of methodology, very quickly, before I go to the web application to show you what data I'm talking about, in terms of the method, the street level imagery will be collected from publicly available sources and organized within a geographic information system framework. A machine learning pipeline based on computer vision techniques will be used to identify and quantify selected features of the built environment, including the things, factors I discussed in the previous kind of slides. So these detected features, yeah.
Sorry to pause you, but I think I realized. So what we're seeing on the screen is just the slides view, not the presentation view. And I can't know if you've already been forwarding through slides, but the slide hasn't changed on our screen.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I've changed it. I don't know why. How about now?
Do you have like? Yeah.
Do
you have multiple displays?
Yeah, maybe I can just share my screen. That might be.
Yeah.
Last time I remember that was that was an issue.
Yeah, if you can do share full screen, that's probably easier.
Sure, sounds great. Let me just do that. screen. Okay, there we go. So how about now? Can you see my screen now?
Nope, not yet.
Not yet? Oh. How about now?
Yep, but it's back to the same. There we go. That's the correct.
Okay, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, again, talking about the method, I'm going to collect street level imagery across Ravenna, and using machine learning pipeline based on computer vision techniques to identify and quantify selected features of the built environment, including the things and factors that I discussed in the previous slides. So these detected features will be aggregated at the street segment level and normalized to create a visual inequality index that I'm going to show you shortly. Spatial analysis will be conducted to identify concentrations of environmental and architectural advantage or disadvantage across the city, and the resulting patterns will be compared with publicly available socioeconomic indicators to explore relationship between visual conditions and broader measures of inequality. So I'm gonna show you the, where is the app? Sorry for the second. Okay, there we go. So can you see this app on my screen? Okay. So for the purpose of today's presentation, I made a web application, and the same will be part of the final projection that I have in mind. So we took some samples of the street view imagery for the entire city. This way, the data is manageable, but also very comprehensive. The study uses GPT vision to analyze the imagery by looking for various elements. I decide what the elements are pretty much. What I'm going to show you is various different ways that images are analyzed through this app. This is one of those things that I can always go back and look for additional elements if I want and run it across the entire sample. One of the limitations of using Google Street View is we are capturing one point in time. So it's a frozen moment in time. For that reason, we're then looking for things that are more permanent in this study, like broken windows, unpaved driveways, etc., that we're going to see. So as you see on the method page here, they are in total 5,794 analyzed views. That's how much images collected from the city of Ravenna for this study. So three primary, as you can see here, three primary ways that I mapped Ravenna, which are based on greeneries, existing greeneries, shades, and physical disorder. And physical disorder, as mentioned here, is deterioration, vacancy, border broken structures, and etc. And it does not involve sort of here at the moment within the maps that you see any economic causes. But again, later in the exhibit that I'm going to have for the final presentation that I'm going to have, I'm going to include those information as well. Aside from that, in terms of scale, so how the images in terms of scales are studied, there's a scale of 1 to 10, which the scale is relative, and this is very interesting. This is part of the method that it was really hard to kind of figure out. So the 10 represent the highest level found in the city, and 0 is the lowest, and all other locations are actually scored proportionally in between. As each new image was evaluated, the scale was recalibrated based on the position within the growing pooling images. This is called dynamic scale, and it depends on sort of the data collected. So as the data collects, if the scale needs to change, the model automatically will change the scale itself. And again, as we add more city, we will maintain the dynamic nature of the scale in this study. So aside from the main three categories, as you can see here, I looked for specific items that represent quality of life. For example, as you see here, mature canopy, missing sidewalks, unpaved driveways, etc. So there is kind of a long list of, again, features and categories that I'm looking into. And this is the list that, again, I can continue grow as I'm uncovering more sort of elements. So when you look at Ravenna, like most other cities, the downtown environment is different from the surrounding. So you can see that here as it's written, I marked the area 400 meters of the to the isolated, comparison between the downtown and the surrounding area. So this was a choice I made to kind of study downtown separate from kind of the suburbs and surrounding areas in the city. So we go to the application page here. So again, today we're only going to look at the data related to Ravenna, but the value that this method brings is comparing cities to cities or larger cities that have multiple neighborhoods. So I'm planning to continue this research with other selected smaller cities, and this will hopefully happen rest of the summer. So I'm going to go to the maps. So this is the map that I will provide as an interactive tool. So that way people can interact with the data. You can click and look up each individual sample data. I'm going to zoom in and you can compare it to other points. For example, if I click, this is a main street. If I click on this point, it will show you the selected image and all the sort of the features that I said. It can give you kind of information in terms of the percentages of the features that are studied. And you can just compare it to other sort of kind of points that within the map are sort of studied. So it's very interactive. You can actually go to your street and look at sort of any given points. And for each point that is selected, both sides are studied. So not only the view that you're looking, but both views of the point. And again, this will give an opportunity to everyone to kind of look into sort of information that I mentioned. And you can change this information. So this is kind of greenery. You can change it to shades. It does the same thing for kind of shading. You can see, in terms of percentage, where there is more shades, in terms of the street shades and less. And it also does the same thing for this investment. So you can see, for example, clicking here, you can clearly see the image, how this investment work, right? So you can compare different points throughout this application. So we're going to move to quality, we're going to move to quality of life. So looking at quality of life, this already kind of tells us which areas outside of the downtown core having less quality of life, based on the index that I explained. And again, like this is the index next to it. Even in the downtown, I'm going to zoom in, the main boulevard, for example, looks good. But as soon as you go to the street next to it, you see how the quality of life drops. And then these are sort of some of the imagery again for it. So very quickly, I'm going to go fast to just show you some other features. So heat, this shows the street lacking both tree canopy and shades. You can see better off zones and sort of areas and just in general on this map. And this, downtown, it's usually the case. A downtown has a higher heat index, but then you can see on the right side, for example, here, it's mainly industrial. So you can see that it has also like a heat, higher heat kind of map. And then again, the same thing, you can zoom in and understand street by street what's going on. Another feature is Equity is when we look at distribution and sort of equity in general. Here we can see certain areas. The difference is kind of 3 times better. It's really bad. For example, I put some examples here. It does a different, analysis for downtown core versus the surrounding neighborhoods, which is mainly housing. So it shows that, for example, the comparison between the West Lucas Lane and West Highland Avenue is 3.3 times. So you can kind of start kind of comparing street by street. So within, again, there are multiple areas that have better greenery shades, less physical disorder, and less heat exposure. And all of these are kind of selected in the findings page. It's like everything that I kind of discussed and is important for me will be collected in the finding page and then with categories and so everything. So for the final, I will be doing multiple cities. So this is only Ravenna, but again, as I mentioned, the great thing about this method is just also comparison. So I would like to look into the cities surrounding Kent, including Kent, and looking at large number of cities to compare what's going on around their neighborhoods. This will become a projection with interactive tools with different elements, as you've seen, plus other additional things that I will come across hopefully later. There will be different components to the exhibit. One is educational tool. So participants can actually learn about this study and, what these, kind of features and elements actually mean for, sort of urban study. And then the interactive element for the residents and community members to explore their own areas. Thank you so much.
Yes. Taraneh, great presentation. Thank you. Just a clarifying question. You mentioned vacancy, and I thought I heard that. So I'm curious if that's observational or if this is cross-referenced with other kinds of computational data points.
I can repeat it if you need me to.
I heard. Thank you so much, thank you so much for the question. So in the application web that I showed, I gathered all the physical disorders under one category, but for the physical disorders, vacancy is actually one category that is studied. So the model picks up all the vacant lands itself. So what I'm gonna do for the final, hopefully is that's a great point. I'm gonna so in general, I categorize them in 3 categories with greenery, disinvestment, and shades, but then under each are more categories. So I think it would be very beneficial for everyone to be able to, for example, to go under physical disorder and click the vacancy, click the broken windows, click the, that's something that I'm planning to do.
Yeah. Thank you very much for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
I was curious if the tool tracks construction, like road construction or building construction, and how that's factored in as a temporary inconvenience, but a more broader potential benefit for a community in terms of quality of life. If construction is tracked and how that's interpreted.
Oh, that's very interesting. So thank you for the question. So to better understand, you're asking whether buildings under constructions can also be detected.
As well as streets or other, like street construction.
Yeah.
And then does that affect like the scale of, of whether or not it's more positive or negative in terms of quality of life, etc.?
Oh, that's a great point. I haven't put buildings under construction. So the model has elements of unpaved. It has elements of potholes. It has elements, it has certain elements of decay, for example, in it. That again, I'm going to categorize. It's been so many categories, but I mean, one of the things that this opportunity has given me is that I've done each of these projects separately, but I could bring everything together under, sort of one case study, which is I'm really excited about. But then it has some of these urban decay elements, and also architecturally, it has like broken windows, it has deteriorated facade, it has all of these, but at the moment, I do not have a category of buildings under construction, which can easily be detected. So I'm going to note this and I'm going to add it. Thank you.
Yeah, Carlos.
Thank you. This was a great presentation. So
Thank
this
you.
sort of in the same vein as the previous question. How will AI know? How will it learn when something is two things? So let's say there's an abandoned lot, but it's overgrown with greenery. How will it know what that is? Is that a sign of disrepair, or is it a sign of, quality of life because of the greenery?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So this is like, for example, like example that you've given, if a lot is vacant, but let's say there are trees on it, right, that provides shades, right, for the public. It will analyze each category differently, right? So it doesn't analyze it in general. So the general, not like an index number that it gives for inequality becomes, it just calculates everything and it gives that number, but it actually analyzes each feature differently. So if it's vacant, it just analyzes it based on vacancy. If it's shades, it's only analyzes it based of shades. Does it make sense?
So, but does quality of life in the index that in that description, does that include things like shade and greenery and vacancy? So it's having to figure out how to balance those and in some form.
Yeah. So again, like with the three, I think one thing that was I feel that was not clear in my presentation was that those three main categories are just main categories, right? So that I can figure out myself that, okay, we are talking about greenery, we're talking about shades, or we're talking about disinvestment. But then under each category, for example, greenery goes so many different sort of categories. So tree canopy is one, right? Like shades of green is another. So there are under each category so many features that, again, I should kind of expand that, but let me just share my screen again very quickly. Yeah, okay, there we go. Can you see my screen?
Yep, except that right now we're seeing, there we go.
Yeah. Okay. So for example, so these three categories that I mentioned, greenery, shade, physical, disorder, there are general categories, but then there are so many markers studied that I want to expand them, and I have other ones that are not even included in this web application, unfortunately, because it took a long time to gather these ones. But then you see, like, for example, mature canopies under, greenery category, maintained landscape is under green category. So for each of these, it will give you a number, and that number overall will be kind of analyzed for the equity measures, right? So the system will separately study vacancy, it's separately studying shades, it's separately studying other sort of urban features that I mentioned.
Like the maintained yard would maybe moderate that score if it's seeing that it's not maintained. Yeah.
So
It's
for
interesting.
example, so for example, a vacant land, the score of a vacant land that doesn't have shade is lower than a vacant land that has shade. In the end.
Taraneh, if you were, our hope and aspiration is for each fellow to do some form of public engagement activity. What would that look like for you? And what do you imagine you would be doing with this? Would it be a demonstration, an exhibition, etc.?
Yeah, so it's going to be mainly an exhibit in the 360. I'm so excited about that space and the 360 projection, room that we have. As I mentioned very briefly, end of the presentation, my hope is, twofold. One is this is going to be an educational tool, right? So talking about all these features and factors and what spatial inequality means and what spatial justice really means, and when we're talking about these, right? So one aspect of it is educational, but another important aspect of it is kind of interactive. So again, like there are multiple, sort of screens, hopefully in that room, that people can actually interact with data in the application that I showed you. And again, I need to work a little bit more on the visual aspect of it. It's going to be the next step for me. Aside from the maps that you see, I want to make it more visual for the public. So public can interact, they can go to different data sets, they can really, see different features and how it's different from one street to another street. That interactive component for me is very important, because then I would love to invite the residents of Ravenna and some community, kind of members, to actually come to the exhibit and hopefully have a conversation about, what's going on. I'm not sure if I can, how that's going to work. If I do multiple cities, it might be even better. I can invite, different community members to see how things are different in Kent versus Ravenna versus, another city. But yeah, so that's a hope, to have an exhibit and invite residents and community members.
As you were saying that, I was just imagining like different cities like fighting with each other over their data in one space. No, I think it could be really interesting as a way to, as a form of public engagement to start to interact with the data in a way that speaks to where they live, and see if, I think it'd be really interesting to see if that actually jives with how they personally feel about their, their town or their experience. So, because for me, the whole thing of, I think it's really interesting that there's this, that you're using a visual analysis tool that can capture lots of factors, but does it understand the human perception factor, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that sort of page or projection about the findings then become very important, because how those findings are portrayed, and if the comparison happen, how those are portrayed, I think is it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like an ever expanding project.
Yeah, now I'm working on a publication. I think like we discussed this before. For most of actually my academic career, I focused on big cities, on mainly, Cleveland, but I'm getting more interested in smaller cities. And I think it's very important to study these cities. So this is kind of a little shift for me, and I'm hoping to kind of explore, how I can help as a researcher.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.